Okay, that's 7:30, so I'll just make a start. So welcome everyone to How I Built Football GPT. If you don't know what Football GPT is, then where have you been? I like to say that it's an AI advisor for football coaches, for football players, and for football manager gamers. And by that, I mean, it gives you targeted advice based on the questions that you ask it. Uh, it's an assistant manager or a coach or an assistant football manager or advisor in your pocket. That's all it is. But most importantly, it's just a tool in the toolbox. And if you're starting to think that that sounds a lot like other AI models like ChatGPT, I think you'd be partially correct. But the key word here is it gives you targeted advice. And I'm going to explain the targeted advice part as we go. So just some quick notes about me. I've got an IT background, I've got a football background, and I've started to blend those together to build things like Football GPT. The key thing here is that I don't gatekeep knowledge. If you follow me on social media, you'll see that I share a lot, I give a lot away for free, and I would like to continue that this year. I'll hopefully address any questions as we go, but if you do have questions, please just pop them in the chat. I'll try and get to them at the end of the stream. If I don't get to them at the end, please feel free to message me. I'll put my details on the last slide. Feel free to reach out to me on X or any other social media, and I'm happy to answer any questions, as I said. Okay, before we continue, it's probably best to set some expectations here. I'm not some fancy salesperson with a nice haircut and a slick way of talking. I can't even have a shave to come on YouTube Live. I'm not very good at presenting. I'll stumble over my words. If something's not clear, please just pop it into the chat and I'll try and explain it further. Right, before you leave the stream, let me just explain what I'm going to be doing today and how you're going to get value from that. So today, I'm just going to share with you completely, openly, transparently, how I built Football GPT and how anyone can do it, even you. But if you don't fancy committing the time to building a tool like I did, I'm going to show you how to use AI to improve your football coaching, your football ability, or anything else that's related to football. And you might be sitting there wondering, why am I doing this? Why would I share something that A, costs me money, and B, I plan to make money from? Well, these days, AI tools and technology, you can build an app in days. We're going to be drowning in apps soon. In the past, the time it took from idea to execution was weeks, months, and years. Now it's days. We're going to be drowning in these things soon, as I said. I've seen a few pop up in the football space already. Someone's built an app to assess your readiness to be a football academy coach. Someone else has built a tactics board that you can move the players around and stuff. And I've seen a few others as well. I could replicate those apps in half a day. So there is no moat anymore. There's no barrier to doing this. When you can copy apps in hours and days, there's no point in keeping all the knowledge to yourself. It's freely available out there should you seek it out. And I'm going to explain how to do that as well. But my primary motivation for today, and with the other initiatives that I do, is to empower coaches to be better at what they do so they can help their players. Because if we can all do that, then hopefully we can keep football players in football a lot longer than they currently are. The current dropout rate for football players is massive. But you can follow me on Twitter for more rants about that subject because I'm ranting about it every day. And you may have read in the lead up to this call that I've called this an AI revolution. The AI revolution is here. It's actually been here for a little while. ChatGPT got 100 million users in 2 months when it launched back in 2022. It's the fastest growing app in history. So every industry is being transformed by AI, and it's been transformed by AI. And I think football coaching is next. It's been a bit slow, but it is next. And if we don't adapt as football coaches and as football people, then we will be left behind, in my opinion. And that all sounds really scary. And I don't actually think a lot of people know how AI actually works. So the first step in this presentation is probably to try and explain that to you so it helps your understanding as a football coach or as anyone else who's interested in AI. Because for me, all AI does, as per this diagram on the right here, it makes sense of a data layer. And if you think of ChatGPT right now, ChatGPT's data layer is probably the entire history of the internet and encyclopedias and loads of different knowledge sources. That's good and bad knowledge sources. That's Reddit, that's blogs, that's social media in some instances, that's FA documents, that's everything from a football point of view. Just for example, you may have noticed when you search ChatGPT for session plans, it'll just give you sort of loads of random sports session planner diagrams. And that's because ChatGPT and any other generic AI, although they're brilliant tools, you will get generic answers from them because of that, because it doesn't know your age group, it doesn't know your level, it doesn't know your formation, and it may well suggest something like doing tactical periodization with your under 6 players. Again, to repeat myself here, it reads from the entire internet as its data source, as its data layer. It makes sense of that, and that's the good and bad sources, in my opinion. Because that data layer can be any source from the internet, and as I said, good or bad, I've got a garbage bag here, because some of the knowledge and some of the information out there, it's not good, as I said. But AI needs to use that in a balanced way to provide you with answers as a coach, as a player, or as a football manager gamer. Going back to those random sports session planner diagrams, it is generic, it is random, it's not systematic. And in a world where we're drowning in information but lacking wisdom, this was and is a major problem for me. So how do we avoid the generic garbage in, garbage out approach? I'm laughing because I've just seen my lovely diagram up here. I don't know what I was doing when I created that. But how do we avoid this garbage in, garbage out scenario? Well, it's really simple. And I've said this to a few people in the past, so apologies if you find me repeating myself again, but context is key. It is the key to getting any good answer from any AI. So when you type something into ChatGPT or Claude, you are typing in what's called a prompt. And the quality of that prompt is crucial to getting a good answer back from the AI engine. Now, I've framed it as context, the context formula. It's the key, as I said, to getting any good answer. If you feed it garbage, you'll get garbage out. So the more context you can give it, the better. And context starts for C, context, something like I coach under 12s grassroots. O, objective, I want to improve their passing. N, numbers, I have 14 players in 60 minutes. Tone, give me something fun and engaging. Examples, similar to rondos with progressions to small-sided games. And exclude, no exercises requiring more than 2 balls. And I couldn't think of anything for T, so it just says context at the moment, but I'll think of the T one later. But hopefully that frames what I'm about to say next, because prompts matter. And if you give it a prompt that says, give me a passing drill, that's no context whatsoever for any AI engine. You will get a better answer if you give it a good prompt, as I said, with a context formula that is full, and it gives the AI engine enough context to give you the best answer it can. And going back to Football GPT for a second, this does the context formula rather automatically, because you fill in a profile, which is up here, which I will show you in a little bit, to help power Football GPT and to get it to give you the best answer that it can. However, just going back to general AI tools, it's really important to me that this is not a sales pitch, as I said, and this is a balanced view, which is also really important in discussions like this. AI tools are available, so which ones are available and which ones are the best for different purposes. So I do have a little bit of text here. These tools are free or cheap, and you should be experimenting with them all to find the best one that fits you and how you're going to use any AI tool. So ChatGPT, probably the most popular one out there at the moment. It's good for general questions, in my opinion. And I don't just apply that to a football context. I just apply that in general. Claude, Anthropic, which has made huge strides in the last 12 to 18 months. That's got strong reasoning. It's excellent for longer conversations. Claude Code is an extension of Claude, and Claude Code is the tool at the moment that's powering a lot of app building. I use it to build apps. I've used it to build Football GPT. It's a fantastic, strong AI tool. There's a new player into the market. It's Google Gemini, which is integrated with Google Tools, which I think Google's solution will become the definitive AI solution in years to come, just because of the power they have behind that and the reach and the knowledge base that they have. We also have other ones like Grok, which is supplied by Elon Musk's X, and Copilot is now built into Windows. And there's loads of different ones, and I'm sure more will come on stream as we go. The only football specific one I could find out there was the one I built, and it was built for coaches on verified sources only. And I'll go into verified sources in a second. So just to frame AI tools again, when to use what. If you have a quick coaching question, I would use Football GPT because of those verified sources and because of knowing your context. That profile I talked about earlier on, it knows your context. And again, being very cryptic here because I'm going to go into the demo in a second. But for general life work questions, I would use ChatGPT or Claude because they have a broader knowledge of those subjects. For research and reading, only Claude, maybe Grok, because they can go into deeper reasoning and handle deeper complex problems. Writing emails or letters, any of them are good these days. Any of them can sound less like AI if you give it the right context. For session planning, Football GPT, just because of the reasons I said earlier on. For opponent analysis, Football GPT, and I'll go into that in a bit more detail. So these are all just my opinion. If you disagree, put something in the chat. Unfortunately, this is the stage we're at with these tools. There are many tools for different purposes. They may consolidate in the future, but at the moment, I've got a subscription to them all, and that's just a necessity for what I do. So why do I recommend Football GPT for football? Let's just go back to that diagram with the data layer and the problems as I see it with generic AI. And maybe I'm being disingenuous when I call it generic because these are powerful tools. But as I said, they pull in all sources, good and bad. They'll give you random answers unless you give it full context. So my solution to that was to control this data layer myself. So to populate this data layer, to gatekeep it, to ensure that only verified sources populated this data layer so that no blogs got in there, no Reddit posts get in there, no random opinions get in there. We just take the actual government bodies and associations and take their data that's publicly available and put it into a database, and I own that, I control it, and it's gatekept so no outside sources get into there. So the sources that I have are, I've said these are the big four, maybe people will disagree, but we've got the FA England DNA model for youth development, we've got UEFA Grassroots, we've got FIFA Training Center, and we've got US Soccer. And we've also got another heap of association data and documents that are in there that's powering that data layer so AI can make sense of it. Got the Netherlands, Spain, Germany, Scotland, got Belgium, France, Portugal. We've also got Football Manager sources. We've got safeguarding sources. We've got sports science sources. We've got physio sources, so that when you ask Football GPT a question, it's only using those sources to answer it. Much like this, because if we've only got verified sources in this data layer, like the FAs, like the associations and everything I've just talked about, then from a football development point of view, from a football education point of view, from a Football Manager context, this AI layer, which is the front end of Football GPT, so it's like the ChatGPT interface, then that's making sense of this data layer. And it's going to give you answers tied to methodology every single time, tied to the age of your players, tied to the age of you, if you've selected you're a player, tied to the stage of your players, and tied to the things that matter to you. So this is how it works. You ask Football GPT a question. So it doesn't even need to be, how do I teach 1v1 defending to under 12s? It could just be, how do I teach 1v1 defending? Football GPT then ignores anything random. It ignores Reddit. It ignores outdated advice. It just takes in the sources that I've asked it to use, which are the sources I've just gone over. It also then takes in your context. So the age group you're coaching, the level that you're coaching, the formation that is your favorite formation, your qualifications as a coach. From a player point of view, it takes in your age, how many years you've been playing football, and all these key questions that I'll show you in a second. From a Football Manager point of view, it takes in the version of Football Manager that you're playing and the team that you're playing as, and I'll show you that as well. It then gives you a personalized answer, which is evidence-based, age-appropriate, and contextual. And that is how Football GPT works. So that's enough talking from me. I've talked this to death. Let me try and show you a little demo without trying to crash my computer. So let me get this up. So hopefully you can still see my screen. I'm using Google's new split screen functionality. So let me just refresh these both just to give them the best chance of working. So I'm just going to take you through this. And I'm going to start with player mode, first of all. And I'm going to give it a little question here. It's how do I build confidence on the ball? So I'm just going to paste that in here. Sorry, my computer's going slow because I'm sharing my screen. Let me just paste that. So I'm going to paste that into ChatGPT first of all. Let me just let that run. The difference, as I said, from a Football GPT point of view is you can set up a personal profile if you're on the Pro plan. Let me just click that. Sorry, this is going really, really slow. I don't know why. Probably because I'm sharing my screen. But yeah, let me just click my profile. So if I select, in Football GPT, I can select my primary default mode when I open the chat. So this is the chat in ChatGPT. I'll show you the chat in Football GPT in a second. But I can select my primary use for Football GPT, whether I'm a coach, a footballer, or I'm a football manager gamer. I can then complete my profile. Let me just show you the coach profile while we're here. So this is my coach profile. I coach under 10s. My game format is 7v7. I have a preferred formation. I can type in my club name. I can type in the number of years coaching experience I have. I can select the coaching qualifications that I have, and I can select my priorities as a coach. So that's me built my profile. That's me built my context in Football GPT. And from a player point of view, I can just select, again, I'll just select random stuff here. I can say my first position is a centre back, my second's a central midfielder, and my third is a striker. I am a real utility player. And I can just say that I'm at a grassroots club. I'm very right-footed. I'm at Riverside FC. I've got 2 years playing experience. I'll save that. I won't select development goals because all of these things are optional. It's just designed to give you context when you ask the AI engine a question. And again, Football Manager save, Football Manager 26. My favorite team, or the team that I'm managing in my save, is Wrexham. So that's me done that. And I do that once and that's set up. So if I go back to the chat, it's going a bit slow. Let me just go back to the start. Here we go. Right. So let me just ask the player mode in Football GPT a question. Now, Football GPT has different advisors. So even if you don't complete your profile, you can select the advisor that you want to give you an answer. And you can see the advisor is tiered. Because I've completed my profile, what should happen, if I don't suffer the curse of the live demo, is that Football GPT should just give me an answer in context to my profile as a football player. So let me just hit send there. Let's go back to ChatGPT. So ChatGPT has given me a fantastic level of information here. It's given me pretty much probably the same information as Football GPT. But the difference is, I think this is very, very generic in comparison to what Football GPT has given me, because Football GPT knows my age, it knows the team I play for, and it knows what to give me as a result as part of the answer. So it's fairly similar answers as ChatGPT, but because it has that context, it's probably gone into a deeper level and made it age, stage, and contextually appropriate. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how Football GPT works. I can see some pictures here from ChatGPT, and this information in isolation might be okay. Obviously, there's a bit of an error here on ChatGPT's part because it's got an American football player, but I think the information might be okay. But the only difference is that Football GPT is going to put that cherry on top as a result of you completing your profile. If you did it in ChatGPT, yes, you could start a memory. It would cost you £20 a month to access that facility. Yes, you can type in here every single time the context, as I described earlier on. But Football GPT, it's got my context. It's $10.99 a month. And I just need to ask it the questions I need to ask it from that point of view. So that's football players, and that's the profile. What about coaches, which I guess the majority of you are here to see? Let me just go back and refresh this. just so you can get an idea of the coach prompts that are available as a coach. So if you log in as a coach and you go to the chat screen, you will get a few options. Generate session plan, gives you a challenge for today, and it gives you some prompts that you can tick. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give it a little challenge to give me a session plan to improve first touch. Sorry, it's going horrendously slow. It's like 10 seconds after I click. I'm getting really impatient with it. But let's give ChatGPT just a new chat as well, just so we're not cross-polluting the player question with the coach question. And if I just hit send there, hopefully we can see the differences. Just let it run. So you can see straight away, this session is based on the FA's principles of game-related training, progressive overload. So it's giving you context around that. And it's also giving you age and stage appropriate sessions as well, based on the profile that you've set. So again, another bonus of Football GPT is that context. ChatGPT will give you these session plans, as I said. Now, these session plans may not be adaptable for your age, might not be appropriate, might not fit in with the game model you're running. It might not be any use at all. It might be. I'm not dismissing it. It might be perfect for what you need. But this one prompt here on both sides, this one gives you the context according to your age and the stage of your players. And that's because I'm controlling that data layer that I talked about. And this one gives you something that's a bit more generic. So I'm not going to flog this point to death because I think I have made my point already. Let me just refresh these pages. Another powerful thing from Football GPT's point of view is the generate session plan facility. So you can click generate session plan. I haven't plugged in the profile here, so it is a bit fiddly to do this, but it's only a few clicks. And you can just ask for any session under 10 for a particular topic, and you can enter a custom topic as well. And as soon as you hit generate, it will go away and it'll build that session for you. And again, I'm repeating myself a little bit here, but it's well worth repeating. That was a few clicks. I don't like how it scrolls down the screen like this, but that was a few clicks, and it gives you the context under 10, 12 players, and it gives you the answers that you need. Another good thing about Football GPT is, you can have these prompts at the bottom. So what are some good crossing drills? You can follow up the chat. It's contextual. It's more like a two-way conversation with the Football GPT engine than it is with the Chat GPT engine. So another huge bonus, and it gives you some session plans that I've created at the bottom there, crossing and finishing ones and things like that. So you get session plans as part of this as well. Last thing to show you, because I don't want to keep going on about the same stuff, but you can do some opposition planning and match prep with Football GPT. So if I was to be playing Test, I can spell, at the weekend, and I know they play a 4-2-3-1, and I know their style is long ball. I know they have some strengths and have some weaknesses. I can start to build a strategy to deal with that. And you can even put that right down to a player level, key players to watch, what their set pieces are like and concerns you have about that. I'll just not fill any of these in. I'll just generate the plan, and I'll go away and come up with a plan. So as a coach, if you want to come up with a plan against playing Test FC, this will give you a good starting point. And I repeat myself here, these are tools in the toolbox. They are not to replace you as a coach. These are to be an assistant coach or assistant manager in your pocket so you can get information when you need it. So that's the coach thing. I'm not going to go into any more depth on that. Just conscious of time. Just last mode is Football Manager mode. And I've got one more question for that. Now, Football Manager mode just launched, and it's probably where I need some help from the Football Manager community. But if I ask that a question and hit send, it will give me some answers based on Football Manager sources that I have selected out there. And it will give me a tactical setup. You can see here, it gives me player roles, and it gives me team instructions, and it gives me the formation to try and combat that. So my point here is, and going back to the presentation, is that, let me just get this up. It is a tool. It's a tool to help you, and it's a tool that you give context once, and it helps you many, many times through its questioning. And it does that through your profile. Every answer is tailored to you. I've just shown you everything that's in version 3, which was launched this week. Your match prep, so you enter the opponent's details, all the stuff that I showed you. But also, it's now fully mobile compatible, so you can install Football GPT on your mobile device as a PWA, as a web app. I'm also going to launch the iOS and Android versions within the next month. Unfortunately, Apple make it as difficult as possible to launch a mobile app, so that's going through that process. And if you're a techie, you've sat through this presentation very, very patiently, and you've waited for this slide, but this is the technical stack. So I'll try and keep this audience friendly as well, because what I have done is build a tech stack using free or low-cost solutions to build Football GPT, so you can go away and you can do it yourself. So I'm using Next.js, which is like the pitch where everything's happening. So it's powering everything behind Football GPT. That's a React framework for the techies in the audience. It's fast, it's modern, it's great for user experience. I'm using Vercel to host it. Host Football GPT as a website. That's like the stadium. It keeps the lights on. Vercel's great. It deploys in seconds. It scales automatically. I'm using Supabase as the database and the authentication layer. It's great. It's open source and it's very low cost. That's like keeping your club records. That's where everything's stored. That's where my sources are stored. That's where user details are stored. Because it's an enterprise class system, they're stored securely. I'm using Stripe to collect payments. So Stripe's handling subscriptions, invoices, and everything. That's like the ticket office from a football analogy point of view. As I said earlier on, I'm using Claude. I'm using Claude to not only, I use Claude to build Football GPT, and I'm using Claude to power the answers as that AI layer that I talked about. And I'm using Resend from an email point of view. So I'm sending emails out using the Resend platform. So for non-developers, you probably fell asleep at this slide, but for developers, that's my tech stack. So we've been very open and transparent about that. And the secret sauce is, just to sum everything everything I've said up, is when you type something into Football GPT, I give Football GPT a pre-match team talk. It's just, for example, I tell it, you are an FA qualified coach. You should always consider the player's age and development stage before you give the answer. You should try and use a development model like the four-corner model if it's for youth development. You should always prioritize fun and engagement for young players. And you should never recommend adult training for young players. And you should reference official sources, not random internet advice. So your AI doesn't just know football, it thinks like a football coach, or it thinks like a football player, or it thinks like a football manager gamer. And again, this is not free to run. So being ultra transparent, it costs about $300 per month to run. Every question that you ask costs me money in API calls because I'm using an API layer. These are the costs. Well, that's why there's a pro tier. And I keep the free tier a very generous 4 questions per day. That should be more than enough for you to use it to help you with your coaching, your football playing, and your football manager gaming experiences. So the key question is, will this replace coaches? Will AI replace coaches? No, absolutely not. It will not replace the relationship you have with your players. It doesn't replace you reading the room. It doesn't replace your experiences. But for me, coaches who use this will have an advantage. You just see me do opposition analysis in about 10 seconds. It wasn't full opposition analysis. It's not going to be 100% accurate, but it stops you starting from zero. If you can't afford expensive tools to do opposition analysis, you can use this instead. And Football GPT is just like having a knowledgeable assistant manager available to you 24/7. If you've got a mentor, you need to wait for your mentorship call. If you've got a question, you need to wait for someone to answer it. With Football GPT, you don't have to do that. So that's me. You can try it for free right now. It's live at footballgpt.co. As I said, free tier gives you 4 messages per day. $10.99 a month gives you access to absolutely everything. And if that doesn't take your fancy, I've got lots more resources from the Football Coaching Academy to my book, to other schools and websites. What I always say is that, good coaching shouldn't be expensive. So get in wherever you need to get into and take whatever you need. I don't gatekeep knowledge. It's yours. And if you fancy checking out my other work, I have a indie page link, which is in the description of this call. So I talked for half an hour straight there. And I'm going to open the floor now. I don't have a life. I've got nowhere to go. I'll stay here as long as you need me. If there are no questions, we can all leave. But you can ask me about the tech. You can ask me about coaching. You can ask me about AI. Drop your questions in the chat if you have any. And if you don't, thank you very much. I'll just repeat myself again. I don't gatekeep knowledge. You can follow me on social media, on Twitter especially. Ask me any questions there. DM me or just at me in a comment. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And on that note, are there any questions in the chat? I can't even see the chat. So I've got an infinite mirror now. That's not good, Kevin. Get rid of that. So Michael has a chat, and I think it's a call out to me cheating on Football Manager back in the day. Probably not, Michael. I'm going to say that. I'll be diplomatic because I'm aware this is going to go out on YouTube afterwards. But it doesn't look like we have any questions in the chat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give everyone their evenings back. And I'm just going to say thank you very much for joining. And again, if you have any questions, please just reach out to me. Thanks very much.